COVID-19 protection measures were extended as they relate to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20 of the Open Meeting Law. This meeting of the City of Westfield Conservation Commission will be conducted by remote participation. Specific information can be found on the City of Westfield website, www.cityofwestfield.org. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen to the meeting may do so by tuning into channel 12 or online at youtube.com Westfield Community Programming Channel. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we're unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the city's website an audio recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Okay, so roll call. Jim?
Yes, here.
Carl?
Yes.
All right, Tom? Lauren?
Here.
Bob?
Yes.
And Carl?
Yes.
I'm here, so Alex is absent this evening. Item 2, open participation. Any member of the public who would like to address the commission on any item not on the agenda? Seeing none. Item 3.
Okay.
John.
Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, John. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, members, for your time. I just want to spend a minute talking about the tree replacement policy that was put in place. And I've got some concerns, and I wasn't able to be a part of the city council part of that because I had COVID. So I just wanted to talk to you guys tonight a little bit about the subjective part of this. And I'm not talking as a city councilor, I'm talking to you as a developer and a resident. Just that, you know, I have some concerns about overreach and maybe being a little bit extreme on some of the items on there. And, you know, I'm sure you're aware that the cost of shrubbery and trees and everything, Bob Florick, I'm sure you know, is quite extreme. So I looked at some of the items here, and I just think that, you know, it may be worth another look at what this is, because this is not only going to impact, you know, a developer or a builder. This is going to impact the person that wants to put in a pool, wants to put an addition on. You know, the costs are going to become prohibitive for these people to do things. And going back a number of years, when I did Janelle Drive, Woodbrook Estates 1, and some of you were there. I know that Jim was. We had a portion of that property that abutted the brook. And at the time, Jack Leary was on the commission, and I think the world of Jack. He drew a line in the sand and said, you know, we're not going to allow anything beyond this point, which turned out to be, you know, 50 feet. And that was fine, except that after all these properties were sold, everybody came in and got permits to put in swimming pools and extend their yards, basically wiping out that line in the sand. And so, you know, what I'm trying to do here is maybe give you some food for thought that, you know, if it's possible to revisit this and maybe, you know, tone it down a little bit or figure out a way to make it not so restrictive in the, you know, in the eyes of a developer or a builder. And also as a homeowner, if I was to come in and be looking for a, you know, pool permit. I just, you know, I'm a little bit concerned about it. And I know you spent a lot of time on it, and I appreciate your time very, very much. But I think it's worth another look if you're willing to do that, and, you know, maybe get some input. As I said, I wasn't able to be there because of COVID, but I would like to maybe, you know, spend some time working on this and maybe come up with some alternatives to some of these things.
Well, thank you, John. This is actually an item on our agenda this evening. Number 8, commission discussion. So fortunately, it's right at the end of the meeting. So
well, I apologize.
Thank you for your input.
Okay.
If you'd like to stick around till later, that we will welcome that. But yes, we've heard, and you know, we're going to discuss it and see if it can be improved, I think.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, could I contribute also?
Not part of the public.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, we'll be talking at it later on. We're talking about it later on. Yeah. I understand. Yep. Thank you.
Okay. Item 3, public meetings. 240 Russellville Road. Continued from 5/10/2022. Okay. Anna, want to give us an update?
Essentially, the current proposal for the leach field, it's outside the permanent limit of work. So our law department said it's not legally allowed to build outside that envelope. Any structure of any sort. I reached out to Oscar and I explained the situation to him, and that we left the RDA open so he wouldn't have to reapply, but just come back with new plans. And the ball's in his court now, and to determine what steps that he wants to take going further, and then to just bring the plans back to us when they're developed.
Okay. I saw Oscar here. You want to add anything, Oscar?
Hi, how are you, everyone?
Hello.
Welcome.
Yeah. You know the situation. I'm keeping waiting and be patient, and I didn't know that. Yeah, she told me there is some experiment work. I didn't know that, and I was talking with the engineer. Yeah, he said he's gonna talk with you guys because there is no chance to move to the house because they say there is only chance to do it like a small tank. Like we have to, clean every week, something like that. And it's not good for me because I'm gonna live there, and then I need something I can use it like normal.
Well, I guess unfortunately that decision was made, several years ago with the owner at the time, and it was recorded. So that information, I guess, should have been investigated and discovered, by the attorney of the person who bought the land. So unfortunately, that's where we are.
Yeah, exactly. But I didn't know that, and that's the guys didn't tell me anything too about that because everything comes like a surprise to me. Everything all these times.
Mike did reach out to me and he questioned the legality of it, and so I did send him. Excuse me. I did send him the deed, and it is clearly stated right at the bottom that the property is subject to the limit of work established and the restrictions from previous enforcement, and it has the date specified there. The property was sold to Angel Noella, unfortunately. So either that information didn't get relayed to Oscar or Angel was unaware of it. But it is something that the closing attorney should have pointed out to both of you, Oscar, and I'm really sorry that didn't happen.
Yeah. I mean, Angelo is my brother. He actually I do all these things because I live in here right now, and Angelo lives in New York. Just that's why. But actually, yeah, I use this lawyer, and he didn't tell me anything about this, and I called it to ask it to happen, but he never called me back. Mm-hmm. Actually, it's like a surprise to me. Some people just looking for money and they don't explain anything. That everything is affect to me. The only thing is I want you guys to help me and just finish this. Because it's too long and I really need that to be done.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so where are we right now, Anna? He's going to work with. You said someone named Mike. Is he still working?
Yeah, are you still working with Mike, Oscar? Are you looking for a different consultant to establish another plan for the house or anything?
I'm gonna keep working with the same guy, but because I don't know any ones. But these guys told me he's gonna try to figure out at the same time, but he said that like it's there's too tired to do that. Because it's because I have my something it's not gonna be fine,
Yeah, so the location would be outside of the 50-foot well, but it would be inside. It would be like just outside your 50-foot well line, I believe, or just inside of it.
Yeah, he was saying that's too close to them,
It would require a totally different system.
Okay.
There is no another one. There's only one. He told me that's but you have to a drain every a week.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's called a tight tank.
Yeah, but I don't want that, because I'm gonna live there,
Yeah.
And I have big land for what to do that. I mean, it's not fair, because anyway, I'm not gonna make any construction in there, it's gonna be planned. So just I need the septic to be also the right one, not that thing.
So it sounds like you're in the steps of working on it and are going to come back to the commission with a proposal for a new septic plan then? Somewhere down the line?
There is no one. He told me there's no new one, something like that. He's gonna try to be, we can do the same one, something like that.
Okay.
It's too close to the wall or something like that.
All right, thank you. Any questions, comments from the commission?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm confused. Oscar, you're continuing the process for another design with your consultant. Is that the correct understanding? Or you're not?
No, if I have to do it, I was gonna do it, but the guy who I use it, he says we cannot move it, that thing, because if we move it, it's gonna be too close to the, I don't know how to call the wall, where the drink water. We're gonna drink the water. It's gonna be too close.
Right. Yeah.
So he say we have to keep the same. You have to can move it just a little bit, but we're gonna do like close to the house. He told me if we're gonna do something close to the house, we'll be like, I don't know, high tank or something like that. But you guys, and he said you have to clean every week. And I have a big land. I cannot do that because I'm gonna go live there and clean every week. Something like that. It doesn't, it's not, it's not gonna work like that.
But unfortunately, your current plans are against the law of the property, so you wouldn't be able to do those without facing penalty. And aside from that, the tight tank just might be your only option at that point, unless there's some other system that's been recently developed.
That's the guys told me, because I don't know much about that. That's the guy, he told me there's a, because I asked him what's the options if we can do that. They say we can do it another, but they say it's gonna be too close to the, it's not gonna work. Something like that, he told me. And this option only for the Titan, but that, I don't want to do that, because I'm gonna live there and want to keep cleaning, I'm gonna, and I have all this big land for what? I want you guys to please to understand that too.
Mhm. Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Oh.
All right, then I guess we need to continue this RDA as Anna suggested. Do we have a motion to continue?
It's so moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor. Jim,
Yes.
Carl,
Yes.
Tom.
Yep.
Lauren,
Yes.
Bob. Where's Bob? He left. Bob?
I don't believe he's here.
Okay, I'll vote yes. So that's enough. Thank you. Item 4, public hearings. 0 Southampton Road. Again, continued from 5/10/2022. Okay. Anna or Karen, do we have an update?
Armbrook is intermittent. There's no legal grounds to change that. I know it was something that the commission was looking in, but talking to Mayor Gover from DEP about it, it doesn't meet any of the qualifications by the Wetlands Protection Act to be considered perennial, and therefore we can't make the argument that it is so. Aside from that, all work is within that 50-foot buffer zone. I had talked to Rob about the same concerns that John brought up earlier in the meeting about the tree policy. And then we had inquired about, or the commission had inquired about the tree policy, snow removal, and then the flow of stormwater runoff and hydrostatic pressure. I was hoping to get information on that this meeting.
Okay. Rob, go right ahead.
Mr. Chairman, before you open the hearing, I don't know if the hearing's been open, but if it hasn't been, does it make?
It's continued. So it is open.
It is open.
Yeah.
It makes sense to take this item out of order, or because the tree planting had been discussed, and the tree planting sounds like it's at the last part of the meeting.
All right, so you'd like to take this out of order after the discussion on tree
Well,
planting?
My understanding was, and I apologize, I was not at the last meeting, but my understanding was that there was questions related to the outer 50 feet of the buffer zone as it relates to the tree planting guidelines that are found on your website. And my understanding is there's a discussion associated with that later on in this meeting.
Yes.
You know, if it made sense to have this public hearing rather than be the guinea pig before that stuff is figured out. Does it make sense to take this out of order, or should we, I guess if the tree planting is not a factor, then I think certainly we would be happy to go now, whatever pleases the commission.
Well, I think as the policy is written, it would be a factor. What's the tenor of the commission? You want to take this out of order until after we discuss the policy?
Rob, the trees were not the only issue that we were hoping you guys would come back to us with. I think there were three other concerns.
Mm-hmm.
I think it makes sense to discuss them now and then discuss trees at the end. Anna, remind me of the three issues that we asked.
Aside from the policy, it was also a concern of snow removal and the flow of stormwater runoff. And then Jim mentioned the hydrostatic pressure from the buildings.
Well, Tom, I'd rather not split this. I mean, if we're going to take it out of order, we can't take half of it out of order, I guess.
So, okay, I'll do whatever the commission. I hear Mr. Sharp's suggestion. Again, I don't want to end up in a situation where procedurally it gets goofy because of unresolved issues with the guidance. But so for the record, I brought that up. So I will bring up, if it pleases the chair, I can bring up the notice of intent site plan revision A dated 5/3. And I will share my screen, and it'll just take me a second.
I do think, Rob, just to clarify on the discussion later on the tree policy, it's going to be not in context of your project specifically. It's just an in general review of the policy.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Anna.
Mm-hmm.
Are you guys looking at my plans?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
What do you know? Wonders never cease. Okay, so I'll go back to folks in the cheap seats. This is this is an existing conditions plan. The BVW associated with Arm Brook, kind of at the center of the property, upland areas on the west and the east sides of that bordering vegetated wetland. As Anna had discussed, there is a portion of Arm Brook that falls within the property that has been determined to be intermittent based on a number of factors. One, the USGS mapping, map-based presumption. 1, 2, on the watershed analysis, the size of the watershed, as well as the stream stats. So that was one of your items. We'll go to the proposed plan sheets here.
Rob, does Armbrook show on the drawing you just had up, or is it off that drawing?
Armbrook is not shown. Armbrook is within the resource area, within the bordering vegetated wetland. We have no impacts or planned impacts within the wetland resource area, so we delineated the outer boundary of the closest resource area.
So it flows north to south. Is that what?
That is correct, Tom. Yep. Like right there.
And then Carl mentioned that there's a closer stream to the property.
There's also a stream on the western side within this bordering vegetated wetland as well, which I guess could be argued that it's the same BVW because it's all connected. So this BVW kind of wraps around the bottom like this.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Rob.
Yep, no problem. Okay, so back to the proposed site plan. So we're looking at sheet C3. Knowing that your new ordinance was coming into play or had come into play, we located all of the proposed storage buildings outside of the 50-foot boundary, the 50-foot quote unquote no touch boundary that now exists. We have the two proposed, we'll call them climate-controlled self-storage buildings, and then your typical self-storage buildings on the exterior. The site will have a perimeter fence, and everything is collected, as mentioned at the last public hearing, everything is collected on the surfaces, runs through a treatment train for stormwater with deep sump catch basins, water quality unit to a sediment forebay to meet all of the DEP standards. We have a report that shows that we meet all of the 10 standards. That's been provided to DEP. I do believe we have a file number at this point. This is the grading plan. So you'll see that the site is fairly flat, but that runs to the, we'll call it to the west. I'm sorry, to the south, to the left side of the plan from North Road, which is here. This is the same BBW, but it's a different orientation. So Arm Brook is at the bottom of the page now. So the existing conditions plan was oriented approximately 90 degrees different than this plan, just so everybody knows what we're looking at. So we have a grading plan that shows a limit of work and an erosion control barrier along the perimeter of the property. We have no actual work within the 50. We are beyond the 50, in some areas up to 70 or 75 feet away from the wetland resource area. As you can see, and as we get into the discussion about plantings, you can see that we're utilizing the area outside of the 50. This is the property line here. And we really don't have any other wiggle room to be planting on site. Obviously, these are buildings. There's a slope here. There could be some plantings along that slope. Typically, we don't plant the slopes of the stormwater basin because we don't want any encroachment of roots to kind of undermine or destabilize the banks of the stormwater management system. We have a drainage system, as I mentioned. We're picking up the roof drains in the drainage system, running those into the catch basins, and then from those catch basins, which are deep sump, 4-foot sump catch basins with hoods, we then run them through the conveyance piping towards the basin. There's a water quality unit here. There's the structure right here, and then that runs into a flared end section that runs to the sediment forebay, and then exfiltrates through the bottom of the basin with an outlet control structure at the bottom left-hand corner here, which is going to be the south corner. And then in the event of a major storm event above 6.5 inches of rain in a 24-hour period, or during some of the other storm events, this would be activated to meter the water out at the same rate that it is currently coming off the site in the design plan. The questions that the commission had related to.
Hey, Rob, that was a point Ryan kept stressing, that the flow out of the detention or retention area is metered. Help me understand how that's important. He was basically saying we don't need to worry about it drying up other areas of this wetland because it's metered.
Yeah. So what happens when we do a good question? Thank you. So what happens when we do a drainage analysis? We look at the pre-development condition. In that condition, we look at the topography, we look at the vegetation, and we look at the soil types. And in that, we use a program called HydroCAD, and we enter watershed areas, subsheds we call them, into this program. And that program will generate for us, it's all in our stormwater report, but that program will generate for us pre-development amount of runoff that's coming off of the site. So we use CFS. So let's just say in the pre-development condition, when it's wooded, and it's in our stormwater report, so I'm just throwing out a number there. Let's say A or 3 CFS, right, comes out of comes off of the site pre-development at a certain design point. We have to look at is, and if we're adding these impervious surfaces, for example, the building, the parking lot, any other impervious surfaces, which we really don't have. It's just the building and the parking lot, or the drive aisles. When we add that impervious surface, it increases the runoff during certain storm events. So we look at the post-development condition. We enter in our new inputs with the impervious surfaces, different runoff coefficients. All those get entered into the program, and then we generate a post-development number for what's coming off of the site post-development, which is typically an increase, as you can imagine. So based on the increase, we're required to then create a stormwater basin. And if you think of the stormwater basin like an hourglass, the hourglass holds the sand and slowly meters it out at, arguably at an hour, rate of an hour. So in this particular case, we're required to look at the 2, 10, I think it's 25 and 100-year storm events, with the 100-year storm event being 6.5 inches of rain in a 24-hour period. So when we look at that in those other storm events, we're supposed to be matching or pretty close to matching the pre-development numbers to the post-development numbers. So I think what Ryan is probably trying to say is that we can't decrease the amount of water going to the wetland in general, and we can't increase. They don't want us creating more or taking away. In this particular case, this wetland is fed in a couple of different ways. Obviously, there's the runoff from our site, but there's a runoff from the adjacent sites, and there's also groundwater. Seasonal high groundwater during our test pits, and obviously, as you look at the actual bordering vegetated wetland and the stream associated with that, you can see that groundwater is pretty much at the surface. So this is groundwater fed wetland as well as obviously the surface water. So we're not making any drastic changes to the amount of water going to the wetland. And we also have a wetland that is supported by the groundwater condition in the general area.
Yep, I understand that, and thank you for that explanation. So you're able to control the flow. The fact that it all now goes to one point, it comes out of one pipe. Does that negatively impact the surrounding wetlands, Rob?
So the fact
before when there was a rain event or whatever, it would, I guess it would disperse in the same northerly direction. Is that what's going to happen here?
So if I can go back a couple sheets here, I'll give you a better answer. And again, the orientation is different here. So this is the site. So the site splits. It drops from, this is North Road here. So it drops, but it also splits as it drops. Is a fair assessment. So it'll continue to drop to the south, and it will basically be just discharging in this general area here. So it's still feeding the wetland. It's discharging at a slightly different area, but still to the same wetland. So I think to your point, Tom, it is intercepted on our site, but the reason there's no way to intercept on a site like this, where you have to meet the performance standards and also have to meet the DEP guidelines for stormwater, where you collect it, treat it, it goes through a treatment train, and then you meter it out and then discharge. There's really no way to do that in a controlled manner without controlling the water. So we do have to have curb parking lots. We do have to direct it to the catch basin. So I think to your point, I think it's a fair assessment that the water is directed in a slightly different manner, but the BVW is all fed by groundwater and by the Arm Brook, by Arm Brook here.
Yep. Again, Rob, thank you for the detailed answer.
Yep, happy to answer. So I think there was a few questions that were at the last public hearing that I didn't get into in detail. So Anna, if it's possible through the chair, if you could just, I think we answered one, which was the intermittent stream. I think was there a question about hydrostatic pressure So I can tell you that we, as land consultants, landscape architects, civil engineers, and land surveyors, we do not, it's not in the DEP standards to study hydrostatic pressure as it relates to groundwater in proposed buildings. I've never run into that. I'm not even familiar with the modeling that would be utilized for that effort. I can speak to the fact that we do look at mounting analyses on occasion in certain instances. If our stormwater system was within a certain distance from water, oftentimes they'll have you look at a mounting analysis, which essentially will tell you what type of effect you'll have on the groundwater in the area. But we do have a reasonably significant depth to the groundwater on site. These will be slabs. There will be 4-foot frost walls for the walls of the building. And generally speaking, they're just going to be, the weight of the building will be dispersed over a large slab. I mean, one of these buildings is about 13,650 feet, and the other one's about 16,275. So I don't have a clear analysis answer for you, but I don't believe that that's something that we've ever been required and I'm not aware of anything in the performance standards that would have us analyze that for a building in terms from a pressure standpoint. I do see that might come up with some of the questions we ran into on some of the floodplain projects that we worked on, but specifically with a buffer zone project outside of the wetland resource area in the outer buffer zone, I have not encountered that.
Rob, it was I who brought up that question.
Okay.
And I understand what you're saying, that there are no specific regulations that addresses it, but it has certainly come up before the board with different projects where groundwater is such that it's close enough to the surface and the type of soil profile is such that the weight of the building will displace water and shift it to another area. That shifting will move the groundwater, which is basically all around in that area, and change the pressures and move the flow of that water underground. And so my concern was, what effect will the weight of the buildings have on this entire wetland resource area? So that's the spirit of the question.
Yeah,
consider it maybe additional information to go with what you reviewed with Tom also, where you're moving water around underground, but we are not hydrologists. We are not, and I understand what you're saying too, but we certainly this has been presented to us before. But I wanted to know what your feedback would be on that.
So a couple things. There's obviously good material on this site. Granted, there's groundwater, but the material is reasonable. As far as compaction, and actually the proponent, Mr. Gielaher, is a site contractor. He could speak to the material as well. He was there when we conducted test pits, but typically these slabs are on compacted gravel, and I don't know that there are any. We have not had a geotechnical engineer look at this point. That would be something that probably prior to the building permit we could look at. Or Mr. Gillaher would have his architects would have the geotech look at for foundation. Generally speaking, I would expect that the compaction of these buildings really would only be affecting the upper levels of soil. Obviously, we'd be stripping the A horizon and into the B and C horizon where we would be constructing the slab. So the topsoil essentially is being removed, but the type of material that we have here, we typically wouldn't expect major settling and major compaction issues with this type of material. So I would assume that down at the groundwater level, and this is not scientific anyway, this is just kind of trying to answer your question in general. The groundwater is 2 feet below our basin, which is at an elevation of let's call it 281. Our building is at 288.
Okay.
So we're about 7. So this might be helpful actually. So we're about 7 feet above. So our basin, where it's about 7 feet. Wait, that 280? No, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I'm right. So it's about 7 feet above the basin with the finished floor of the building, and the basin has to be a minimum of 2 feet above seasonal high groundwater. So we're about 9 feet above the seasonal high groundwater. So I think that the delta between those two, that cross section should rest that there's no major impact to groundwater.
Okay, that provides some good information as far as the dissipation of the water and how it flows underground. This detention basin, is this going to be a 4-bay? I'm looking at the layout there, but you'd have to go a little deeper on that answer.
Sure, I can show you that. Let me just figure out how to get the screen right. Sorry, guys. Picture pages. Okay, so can you see the basin large scale now?
Yes.
Yeah, good.
Okay, so all right, so just to kind of give you how it runs. So I'm going to go to the next sheet here, I think. Go. This will be a little better. Okay, so again, the bottom of the basin is 281. Top we'll call 286. Okay, this is kind of the berm right here going around at 286. We have an outlet control here, and then our flared end runs into a riprap apron to kind of energy dissipator to slow it down. In this area right here, Jim, is the 4-bay.
Okay.
Another riprap check dam right here that has some height to it. It's looks like it's about 2 feet tall. So the idea is that not only will the deep sumps catch the sediment or anything else, floatables, and then it would go to a water quality unit that further removes total suspended solids, then to the flared end, which was that has the energy dissipator to slow things down, then in the 4-bay, which arguably will settle anything else out that should take it through, and then obviously the basin itself at that point will, everything will exfiltrate through based on the calcs.
Okay. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Just while it's fresh in my mind, I want to remember, and the minutes, Anna confirmed this for me, but the minutes indicate that when Ryan answered a similar question 2 weeks ago, he estimated groundwater to be 30 inches below surface. Did I hear you say it's 9 feet below surface, Rob? And maybe my memory's not good on this, but
no, I think your memory is probably good. I think it depends on where he was talking about. So if he said it was 30 inches below the basin, which is probably what he was. I don't have the minutes and I wasn't there. So what I was, just to describe what I was talking about again in detail. Let's see there. All right. So if Ryan said it was 36 inches down from grade, let's just see if I can find an existing contour elevation somewhere. Like 282 is I think this contour here. So our basin is at 281. So if he said it was 36 inches down, that would make sense with how much lower it is than grade here. But what we're doing from the basin toe, this is the inside toe of the basin right here, Tom?
Yep.
What we're doing is we're climbing up to an elevation of 286. And then from there, I think we have parking lot grade here of 288. And then with the building finished floor, I forget what I said, was it 289 or something like that. So, and that's on the other sheet, I think. 288.2, sorry. So then this is a little clearer to see. So down below our basin, the groundwater is, let's just say it's, 3 feet down or so. I'm sorry, from existing grade. So that would be consistent with what Ryan said. I think you were just, when I said 9 feet, I was talking about from the bottom of the basin up to the finished floor of our proposed structure.
I understand. Thank you.
Yep. So I think that was there was a couple other quick questions that
The last question was on the snow removal processes.
So that's a good question because Mr. Gielaher actually clears the mall and other large sites. So this is a fairly tight site, and it's a good question. I would anticipate, and Mr. Gielaher could always speak to this, but because of the nature of the site, I would expect that during major storm events, they would, and probably not, multiple storm events or major storm events, they would need to truck stormwater off site because you have a building on the south, or I'm sorry, that's the east, building on the bottom here, building on the top. There's wetland resource areas around the outside. We're going to have guardrails, so they're not going to be able to push through that stuff. So I would argue, and Mr. Gielaher can always talk to this, but that, anything over a few inches, multiple times, unless it melts fairly quickly, would likely need to be managed. Mr. Gielaher has a series of loaders and excavators that can be utilized to remove the snow from the site. So that can be.
Rob, do we want to add a snow removal plan to the design, to the paper?
Yeah, and you know what might be, I don't operate any heavy equipment. Thank God, you probably don't want to see me doing that. But what I would maybe recommend as a condition that the owner, Mr. Gielaher, or the proponent, Mr. Gielaher, provide an actual narrative, snow removal narrative to the commission prior to the start of, whatever you deem appropriate, because he can tell you how he's really going to do it. I mean, I can suggest things, but he can tell you how he's really going to do it, and you guys will approve that or not.
There was concerns on that and the methane removal as well as the de-icing materials to be used on the location.
I know that I've heard an answer from Mr. Gielaher before related to not using anything that's not allowed on town roads or city roads in this case. So we would obviously adhere to whatever the commission determines, but we do know that there's important resource areas here, obviously on Brook, in other areas. So whatever the commission deems appropriate. Ryan, are you through the chair, if that's okay, Mr.?
Yes, go ahead.
Ryan, are you available to speak to that? Because I know this is your bill.
Yeah, yes, Rob, thanks. Ryan Gielaher, 75 Russellville Road. Past experience in other properties throughout Western Mass, certain conservation commissions have requested that only straight sand has been applied. And then also some have looked at some of the de-icing products that are environmentally friendly. The straight sand type applications were on properties such as 25 years ago. And if we can use de-icing, which we can provide cut sheets on that are friendly to the environment, that is something that I would lean towards more, because with the sand, you're essentially just putting it down and creating, I'm going to call it a beach, which then is just getting into your catch basins, which is a little bit more of a maintenance issue. But I'm fine with the commission if they want some examples of what we use, or if they have examples of what they've used or enforced on other projects, to review and use those. But we do currently and have over the last 25 years worked in environmentally sensitive properties and such.
And can you address Rob's suggestion of taking the snow off site?
Yes. So exactly what Rob had said, we would go in a snow event, a major one, obviously a minor snow event, let's say under 4 inches. We would locate the snow in probably 2 or 3 corners, most likely a little bit up towards the front. And just like normal operation that we do currently at other facilities, we go in, we'd get the snow piled up and we'd truck it off site. So there's no piles of snow left, and then there's no chance of ice issues either, or blocking aisleways. Obviously, during a larger event, some of this activity might have to go on during, but a typical event, we're able to temporarily stockpile it and remove it, typically within 24 hours or less.
Our clients,
Make a joke. I'm going to make a joke. Do you still have the ice melter, Ryan?
We do have snow melting equipment that is recognized, and it could be utilized on this property as well.
Thanks.
are there any restrictions on the storage of chemicals and fluids in these sites?
Yeah, you guys had asked the same question, and so did planning board. So we sent a sample lease to Mr. Levesque's office with some verbiage in there. And that's something that is 100% on our radar, because we don't want any such items on any property, because it inherently becomes the landowner's issue. There it is. Thanks, Rob.
Okay. Do we have a copy of that at the office, or is that something we're just looking at for the first time now?
First time.
First time.
I have a copy yet.
So what is this saying, Ryan? That don't put nasty stuff in your rental unit?
I think if you go to page 2, Rob, there. Thank you. Can you blow that up a little bit, though?
Yep, and I can read it too.
Please.
Okay, so item number 2, tenants shall not place or keep in the premises explosives, flammable liquids, contraband, or other goods prohibited by law, and agree to abide by any rules promulgated by management governing the use of these premises. Tenant shall not permit damage to the premises by and hold manager harmless, blah, 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 blah. That's not important. What else is that? So, yeah, so basically they're saying that you can't, store anything bad, but, if there, I guess, certainly, Ryan, if there was something specific that the commission had a concern, we could certainly, I'm guessing that could be incorporated into a lease as necessary.
Are these containers waterproof?
Yes.
Okay, so if there's a flood, water's not going to get into them?
So if there's a rain event, they're designed so that the water sheet flows off of them into the parking areas, or to the, to the downspouts. If there was a flood, we're not within the 100-year floodplain.
Right.
So if there was a flood, it would have to be, we'd probably need an ARC.
Okay.
If it affected it.
But, what if somebody wants to store in, 20, 40-pound bags of insecticide or something? Nothing here tells me that they can't do that.
So we could be very specific in the lease. And then these places are monitored. So if they, for some reason, saw somebody unloading some sort of, prohibited materials, they could certainly handle that appropriately. Ryan, is that accurate?
Yeah, there's going to be someone on site daily, and then also the security system is quite elaborate on these to monitor these items and such. And I have no issue. I mean, trust me, I understand the commission stance on what they don't want to see there. I'm right with you. The more items that we brainstorm came up that we could put in there, it's better protection for myself and also for the commission and the property surrounding. So, it could be, I don't want to say a joint effort, but I definitely would allow and would love to have some input on some of those things.
So perhaps a suggested special condition that, draft lease be presented to the commission prior to the start of construction, and that reviewed and approved by the commission or its representative or something to that effect.
I'd like to chime in, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to see it much more comprehensive, and I know that there's components of information in the aquifer protection laws but things like chemicals, bases, oils, gasolines. Obviously, there's some information here, and I'd have to perceive this just as a start. So Ryan can make it much more comprehensive. Anyways, and I do agree that it should be part of the plan and the order of conditions. I do have a concern, though, about something as important as this being not submitted to us, but being made a condition of, or being provided before construction starts. That gives us less oversight than before we would write an order of conditions. And I think this is of high importance.
I would agree. I think we would need to approve the language of this, before we issue an order of conditions. Because once we issue the order, we lose a lot of authority on it.
Understood. Be happy to work with your conservation officer to put that list together, like you said, based on some of the aquifer prohibitions, as well as the obvious ones that Jim had mentioned. Makes sense.
Yeah. Ryan, Rob, could you go back to your maps, please? Or the first one? Okay. All right.
Maybe that would be the best one for you.
Keep going. There we go. Okay. Now, I still have a question about the flow of water from that high area, the ridge, into the wetland all along the ridge. Because if you look at the northern end of the wetland near North Road, how is that going to benefit by water going into the detention basin at the south end of the property? It seems like there will be less water flowing through groundwater or through other water into the north end of the wetland because of the detention basin at the south end of the wetland or of the property.
I think that's accurate. I think it's directed, from a micro stormwater point of view, I would agree.
Mm-hmm.
From the typical modeling and DEP requirements, we're still sending it to the same wetland resource area. It is, again, a point source versus, kind of sheet flow now. We're required to do this. It's not something that we would love to let it sheet flow. Or not me, but, the opponent, I'm sure, would love to let it sheet flow. So we can't control it and clean it without doing what we're supposed to do with the regulations. There's a thought that, I guess you could look at the two buildings, the storage building, number 4 and number 1, if you were to let the roof water, if it was collected and then ran to the rear of the property, or it wasn't collected and just if the roof's shedded towards the, I guess to the east and west, which would be top and bottom of the page, that would be, flow, but that flow would then be an increase. It wouldn't meet the standard because we would essentially be increasing the runoff from those roofs. I'm sorry, those impervious roofs would be increasing the rate of runoff to those areas. So we wouldn't meet the letter of the law, but it would be sending water directly to the areas that you're talking about. So I don't know. I think controlling the water and treating it as DEP has, given us guidance on, makes the most sense. But I don't see this water. We've been out there seeing these BVWs. Again, they're fed, they're groundwater fed and stream fed, both of them. So But I do hear
We
you
were out
saying.
there on the site visit. We did see a flow going from the right side of your drawing to the left. Do you know what the difference in elevation is from the right side to the left side?
Yep.
From the top to the bottom here
Top to the bottom. Yep. Okay. Let me give you a couple elevations here.
in the BVW. Yeah.
So we got an elevation of about 293.
No, I mean in the BVW where the stream is.
Oh, I'm sorry. Now I'm all messed up. Sorry. 1 second. Okay. So in the BVW, where the Arm Brook is, there's an elevation. We don't have detailed topo in the BVW, but there is an elevation of about call it 281 up here.
Mm-hmm.
And an adjacent elevation down here, call it 275.
Okay. So about a 6 foot difference.
Yeah, so it's, it is flowing. Yeah, it's all flowing to the design. Eventually, it's all kind of getting to that post-construction design.
So you would say under your plan, there would still be enough groundwater to keep the upper end of that BVW fully hydrated? So there wouldn't be a detrimental effect on it?
Correct. Yes, and I think the modeling and all of our modeling is based on the NRCS method of stormwater analysis.
Okay. Any other questions from the commission?
I have a couple of comments and questions, if that's okay.
Please go.
So I think for the snow removal issue, I think if there's going to be space used on the plans, it should be called out on the plans, and possibly maybe signage, because just because it's on the plans doesn't mean it's going to be followed in the field. And that leads me to my other question about fencing. You said there was 2 different fences. There was a guardrail and then a chain link, or I'm not quite sure what the other fence was.
First of all, that. Hi, Karen.
Hi, Rob.
Nice to see you. Just joking. So I'll show you a little bit here. I think the plan will be the best one to look at. I'm not doing too good with the sizing tonight. So, okay. So we have a perimeter fence. There will be a gate here so that people will be able to get in. This front area is where the parking is. So that people will be, essentially this is like public use, so to speak, and then private in the back. So they can't get into the back without a gated entry. Same thing here. So there's a chain link fence and gate that, or more ornamental depending on what Mr. Gieler is using. And then there's a guard. Once they're in the site, there's a guardrail at this back corner to keep them from some going over the edge here. If somebody's not
So that okay, that's understandable. So that makes it easy for them to maintain the basin, but it also makes it easy for people to dump trash and snow. So that's my concern. That basin is going to be full of trash and full of snow. A couple of seasons in, people just won't know. Maybe signage. I don't know. Maybe better fencing. I'm also go ahead.
Good question. So I don't, so it's all based on management, obviously, but good comment related to this, the snow. We certainly bring a guardrail across here that would prevent anything from being pushed in. I think if you did a fence there, it's going to be less effective, believe it or not, because you could, it's going to get, probably going to get beat up pretty quickly. So I think a wood guardrail, or maybe both, wood guardrail and small fence to keep it out. But yeah, I think, Commonwealth guardrail makes a nice wood guardrail and that's what we're planning on here. So we can just bring that around. The corner. There is a perimeter fence as well that's shown. So obviously we want to make sure this is a secure facility. And as far as, trash, we don't plan on having a dumpster, but that doesn't mean it won't be maintained. As Mr. Dealer had mentioned, there'd be somebody on site every day. He also owns a property right up the road on North Road. So I would expect that this will be well maintained. And then obviously any conditions. And the good news is you do have a site contractor who's well aware of stormwater rules and regulations. So as far as, throwing snow into the stormwater basin, he knows that that's not kosher, so to speak.
Oh, no question he knows, but a lot of people behind the wheel don't always get that information. So yeah, just trying to.
Yeah, so we could add signage. I guess the short answer is we could add a guardrail and signage. That's logical. Right?
And then my other suggestion to the commission was if you're concerned with materials being stored in the facility, you could request water quality monitoring system, groundwater monitoring of some kind around the building and for future. That's it. Thank you.
Yes. So I think, Rob, there are some questions that we still need to be addressed before we can close this out. And update the plan, I guess, with the guardrails and the signage and the lease as far as, the materials that could be permitted in there, I think is a big key now because of how close this property is to the BVW.
Understood. That makes perfect sense to us. We can certainly provide that. We can provide that through Anna prior to the next meeting so that the commission has some opportunity to review it. And if there's any comments through Anna that you have, we'll certainly try to bang out the dents before the next public.
Okay.
Does it make sense? Is there any, I don't know if the tree item is not even an item for this project. If it already been discussed and the ship has sailed, that's fine. I didn't know if we should talk about it now because we want to make sure we're coming back with all proper information so we can close this.
I would say,
Rob, thank you, Anna. Rob, is the perimeter fence follow the 50-foot? Does it touch the 50-foot line in certain spots?
I think it's fair to say it's just outside the 50-foot in certain spots. I could go through in detail, but if you follow my cursor here, we're pretty close to the 50 here, Tom. Right, kind of right parallel to it, just a few feet off. Then not near it, and then back close to it again. Maybe we're close to 70 feet, and then we follow the property line, and then.
Will you please give some thought to where you'll put like the stay off signs? The 50-foot, conservation area. I don't even know how many you'll need, but please reflect that on your updated site plan.
Sure. This would be, just to be clear, this would be a 6-foot chain link. I believe it may have barbed wire. Ryan could speak to that. Ryan, is it going to have barbed wire?
I'd prefer not to have that.
Okay. So as far as anyone throwing anything or dumping anything, they would have to literally throw it over the 6-foot chain link fence, which is going to be monitored, and we will have cameras. So we're going to try to deter that. So I would expect that, strategically placed signs along the fence in certain locations that are near the parking lot with the drive aisle would make the most sense. So we'll Tom.
That would help employees or contractors who are on the site to know where to play or not. I agree with you, Rob. We should talk before we let you go about trees a little bit. Do you have any idea how many trees within the resource area are being removed?
No. The short answer is I can imagine, as I'm sure you folks can. I appreciate you taking the time to talk about this because this has been a subject of discussion for a number of folks, including Mr. Gallagher. So Can I ask a question or two about the guidance? What the goal of the guidance? I'm not sure who, the proponent of it, but I guess a few questions, if it's okay, through the chair.
I'll go right ahead.
Okay, thank you. So the first question is it intended to replace trees within 50-foot no-touch area if in fact somebody had to go into it? Or is it the intent that guidance be used to supplement the outer 50-foot? That was the first question I had.
If I could speak to that.
Go ahead.
According to, because I was confused as well as of the last meeting, so I reached out to our city lawyer. According to her, the policy is something that can be allowed for the commission to enforce at their discretion should an application for a permit require the removal of trees. Is essentially what it comes down to.
So really it's subjective within the 100-foot buffer zone in its entirety.
Yes, as long as it's within the jurisdiction of the commission.
Okay. So I did a quick, and this is not super scientific, but just, off the top of my head, I did a quick analysis. Let's say that you have a 5-acre, I get too much into the discussion about the guidance because I know you're going to do it again. But for the purposes of this discussion, if you're in the outer 50-foot buffer zone, let's just look at our plan and say that, let's say we have an acre, or maybe it's not quite that. Let's say we have a half an acre of trees within the buffer zone. This site is completely wooded, generally speaking. There are I don't think there's a ton of understory small saplings, but I know there are some. And I saw that you had a graduated schedule for the tree planting. So even for something less than 6 inches in caliper diameter of breast height, it looks like to me, and Bob Flora could speak to this because he knows this stuff really well. It looked to me like a replacement of a sapling would cost anywhere from $300 to $500. That would be based on the replacement of the tree, which the tree would cost a certain amount, and then there was 5 shrubs. So if you had a buffer zone, let's just say these, if you had, a half an acre even of buffer zone trees, how many trees is there? 200 or 300 trees in that buffer zone? Maybe there's 500. I mean, I think there's going to be a significant number in these buffer zones that we're dealing with. So if we're talking, let's say 300 plus the shrubs, and Bob, I'm going off of, typical small nursery stock, maybe, 1.5 to 2 inch caliper planted, balled and burlap planted, which isn't, so this, what the thought would be that maybe it's 300 installed plus, say it's 50 per shrub installed times 5. So it's a decent amount of money. So it's 250 plus 300, 550 per tree times, let's say it's 200 trees. It's $110,000. Now, I don't know how the commission is viewing this, but obviously it's impactful to a project like this, significantly impactful. The same holds true from a homeowner standpoint. Let's say we had somebody installing an in-ground pool within the buffer zone. They might have the same bill. And if they're paying 50 grand for a pool, you just killed their pool project. Or if it's a single family home, certainly with the prices, they can't sustain this type of replacement schedule just based on cost. Not to mention that if I'm locating, my guys alone are locating trees within the buffer zone, it might cost them $3 or $4 grand extra to literally go through painstakingly and look at every tree to be taken out. And, it's pretty significant. So it's a big cost. It's a really big, I get the idea of the guidance, but it's a really big deal.
Rob, I just have one comment. I believe Anna had something that the city attorney said that each site would would have to look at each site. Anna, was that correct?
It's the policy is to be used at the commission's discretion.
Okay.
So according to if the permit requires removal of trees. So essentially the commission can determine which project the policy would apply to, as well as how many and so on.
Rob, on the second page of the policy, it states if space is limited or there exists other unique site constraints, the commission will have discretion over the tree or shrub removal requirements or permit off-site mitigation as appropriate. And as you mentioned, there are a lot of trees coming out of there, and I'm not sure where you would replace them on this site.
Mr. Chairman, if it may be a discussion for the next, item on, or the last item on the agenda.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to understand, and I think it puts not only the applicant, proponent, and consultant, as well as Anna and the commission in a funny spot. Because what happens is with the subjective language, it's nice to have the ability to decide, with a magic wand, which ones you want to and don't want to control. And I get that it is subjective, but given the significance of the regulation or the guidance, the significance of the guidance and the power, arguably the power of the commission, without a very fair, consistent application of this, it's going to be, I think it's fraught with peril for everyone. I really do. I think, it makes, if this was to replace the stuff within the 50-foot buffer, because you guys are already trying to keep everybody out of that, and your ordinance does that effectively, that makes a lot more sense to me. I think what this really feels like is another overreach, where the regulation says stay out of the 50, but then now anything 50 to 100, you might have to pay 110 grand extra. So how do you, as an applicant or a proponent, Mr. Gielher, for example, come in and guess how much your project is going? Can you even afford to do the project? I mean, it's a pretty significant impact from a cost standpoint, especially on a single family homeowner.
Okay, thank you. Again, we will revisit this evening at the end. So I think, again, we are having to continue this particular project till our next meeting, but perhaps we'll have some more concrete suggestions after our discussion later tonight.
That would be great. Thank you, and appreciate your, your latitude. Thank you.
Mary Ann, you had a comment?
Yeah, I was just, excuse me. Thank you, Mary Ann Babinski. I was just, so you're going to continue the public hearing is that what
Yes.
you're saying? Okay, so we can reserve our comments from them, because I was just going to suggest to Rob that they could save a lot of money. Just leave the trees in the heat and go someplace else. Because well, this is the story of stuff. And we know, if you've never followed that story, we have a problem with stuff. And to sacrifice the resources here, the aquifer possibly, not knowing there are so many issues that I'm hearing discussed tonight that you're going to have to be careful of and make sure, and who's monitoring and where's the oversight. And you've got a lot of different people coming in here that you're going to try to control. They're going to be doing. And Karen, up here on the north side with all the businesses that are up here, how on Earth Day, how many times you've gone up there and the crap that you have pulled out of the woods and the wetlands and whatever that people have just been throwing in there. So there's a lot of issues here that those of us who have followed this for a very long time, it doesn't give us a warm and fuzzy feeling. So this is going to take a lot of planning and thought and thinking of how you're going to protect natural resources up there and the habitats that are there. And and monitor it and making sure that nothing is going to happen in the future. I don't see story of stuff. People need to store. Why? We're going to destroy all that up there just because people can't figure out where to put their stuff. There's probably better things. We used to work on doing things with solar fields, and we didn't say that solar fields was the answer for our energy sources and you can put them anywhere. It's responsibly sited. So I don't know if the story of stuff and giving people a place to store their stuff because they've run out of places at home or whatever their reason is for doing it, that this is the right place.
Okay, thank
So
you.
So I'm glad you're keeping it open because there are some more information I think you might have received. Anna, you might have received some stuff from other people today.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I do have a letter, if you would allow me to read it from.
All right. Well, thank
concerned
you.
Herman.
Thank you for the time, and I appreciate the time and the scrutiny that the Conservation Commission is devoting to this. So those of us who are concerned about this area really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne. Okay, go ahead, Anna.
So this email is from Barbara Raukos at 272 Lockhouse Road. I don't know if that's how you say their last name. They said, I am sending this email to you because I have difficulty trying to participate in the Zoom meeting. The location of the project is a concern of mine. I moved to this area when it was all farmlands, wetlands, woodlands, and swamp. Arm Brook has never stopped running except when the beaver built their dams. I wonder now why it is considered an intermittent stream. If it ever dries out, isn't it a perennial stream? Also, I received a postcard recently from the Pioneer Valley project? Yeah, Pioneer Valley project. I had a look at what PVP was. They're walking the entire waterway of the Northampton to New Haven Canal. Armbrook is a major part of that waterway, possibly to name it a historical site. I believe no work should be done in and around these sites until the study is complete. What a shame on us if what a shame on us. I can read. What a shame on us if we were to allow any project to advance without first allowing the study to be completed. How proud we should be of our history and strive to save every little bit of what's left of it, especially to the north side. Please vote to disallow this project to go forward until the process is completed. And then please let me know why Armbrook is no longer considered perennial. Thank you for your consideration. And I did look up the new historical thing that they're trying to do. It was posted. It's a fieldwork beginning on historic New Haven Northampton Canal effort. It was recently published in April 27th of this year, and they are walking the entire canal to determine if it is a historical site or not. And there's very limited data on documentation within the Historical Commission, resource information systems, etc. I can reach out to the PVPC planner and ask her more about it.
The city's historical society would know about that. I mean, we had the 350 celebrations. There was a gentleman, I forgot his name, who's written a book about the canal, and he gave a talk to the 350, which was quite interesting, all from New Haven all the way up to Northampton. So, okay.
Madsen,
okay. All right.
Mr. Chairman, there was also a question about, it may not be applicable because I've never heard of it before, but one of our concerned citizens brought up zoning ordinance, something about Article 3. Anna, you are going to hopefully take a look at that and see if there was somehow it was implied that gave this property special protection due to its aquifer status. Did we have a chance to verify any of that?
So the aquifer is located on the south end of the property. From what I've reviewed, it doesn't make the property not be able to be developed because it's outside the aquifer zone, the location of this project. If it was within the aquifer zone, it would be more of a conversation.
Tom, I talked to the city planner, and that's exactly what he told me as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay, seeing no more comments now, let's
Can I make one quick suggestion to the applicant? It sounds like the commission's haven't really struggling with this. Would you be willing to put the rest of the property in as some sort of permanent restriction or protection
No,
in order to offset this? Just throwing that out there. So thank you.
no. There's other developable property there.
Rob, is now the time, since you've delineated and you know where this 50-foot line is in other pockets of this property, is now the time to put signage up before machinery ends up out there and starts pushing things around?
Now meaning prior to, so
Somehow I got the impression that there might be 2 more developable plots on this property. Maybe there's 5, I don't know. But we also know that there's some sensitive areas that you know to stay away from. Is now the time to take a broader view and go out and slap some 50 feet stay away signs?
So I think I can answer that. If I can figure out how to get my screen back up.
Well, Tom, I would suggest that any future work is going to be another NOI. So we're going to have, they're not going to just go out and start throwing things in there.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I just thought, well, I like Karen's idea. I like the idea of preserving some of this property.
Mhm.
And obviously, everyone knows that it's a very environmentally sensitive piece of land, which is why we're focused on it. So before we let Rob go, Rob, do you know what you need to do now? There, in my head, there's like 4 or 5 things that you're going to amend your plan with.
Yep, and I also think I can answer Karen's question and your question better, if that's okay. So the area that we're working, can you see the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So the area that we're working on is this upland peninsula, or whatever we'll call that. There's another upland area here that's also viable. It actually was looked at early on when the Cumberland Farms went through, and there's actually an access easement you see right here, a 44-foot wide access easement that was proposed back when they developed the Cumberland Farms. So we anticipate that this area would be developable and that we could meet the performance standards, stay out of the 50, and utilize this area. That said, there are other areas within the property that certainly the wetland or that would not be developable, that I'm sure Mr. Gielaher is a creative guy and would be potentially willing to protect this wetland corridor in some way, shape, or form. The Wetlands Protection Act already does that. But if there was an appetite for some sort of restriction on that area above and beyond the Wetlands Protection Act, I don't see why that would impact or hurt Mr. Gielaher from a financial or a developable land point of view. The question is what real additional, what's the real advantage to that? So that Protection Act already protects that, but we could look at that if that was something of interest.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to go back to a comment or the discussion point that Karen brought up about a monitoring system. Generally, our exposure to them has been through gasoline stations when it's sort of part of the package to have groundwater monitoring. But this is, as we all know, in a highly sensitive area. And I'm going to ask that the applicant also explore that as a additional layer of protection.
All right. Thank you. I think we have a pretty comprehensive list to continue through the next meeting.
I'll make a motion that we continue when you're ready, Mr. Chairman.
I'm ready.
I'll make that motion that we continue this matter until our next meeting.
All right, do you have a second?
Second that.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Tom,
I'll vote yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Carl,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Lauren,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes as well. All right, thank you, Rob.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. Please remove your screen save, your sharing thing. Thank you. Item B, 231 East Main Street. Again, building a drive-through restaurant, continued from 5/10/22. Anna, you had a site visit?
We did not. Nobody was available to do a site visit on Friday.
Okay.
I didn't go to a site visit because of the parking lot. But aside from that, I didn't know if the commission still wanted to do a site visit in order to better visualize the product. And then I think we just got the comments today from DEP.
Mm-hmm. So
I want to say.
the commission, you haven't sent them out to the commission yet?
No, I literally got the email right before I left the office
Really?
today.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. So, we need time to look at those. I guess, does anybody want to go there? She says it is just a parking lot, just asphalt there. And, it's similar to the project further down East Main Street, the Chipotle one. I'm not sure if we did a site visit there or not either. There's no question of comp storage, I guess, because they're using the same from the Aldi's comp storage. Rob, are you the proponent for this one too?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, you want to give us an update then?
Sure. So as discussed, the subject area is an asphalt parking lot. We are proposing a new drive-through restaurant. Went through planning. And we, as mentioned, had already secured comp storage associated with the offsite comp storage location for the Aldi's. So it's really just was updating the commission on the calculations for the construction of the new restaurant and arguably taking that comp storage from the available at that offsite location. So we've provided those calculations. I do believe we have a DEP file number. The one comment I saw from DEP was related to dual orders in that there's an order of conditions on the subject property for the Aldi's, and they just wanted to make sure that the work did not overlap, which I don't believe it does, because our limit of work for the Aldi really stopped at this, entrance aisle here, and we're going to be working in this area here. Just to show you the layout plan again, this is the proposed building. So the comp storage and calculations associated therewith are based on the construction, some curbing and some minor grading of the ground plane, generally at existing grades. And we have a detailed site grading plan that shows that, as well as we have our drainage that meets the standards and subsurface and proven to be nice soils down there. So that's really it. I think we have the file number. I don't think anything in the file number would necessarily hold us up. We'd be happy to hear any questions the commission has beyond what we're showing you tonight.
Rob, currently, if we have a snowy winter, that's where they put huge piles of snow with the bucket loaders sitting there all winter long. What's going to happen if this is built here?
We didn't discuss that. To be honest, they'll have to find another location within the parking lot. There are some other underutilized areas. I would just assume that they would pick another location within the parking lot and stockpile it there. Probably not out front, maybe even off the side. There are some areas to the east of the building that potentially could be available, but we did not do that.
Rob, this probably has nothing to do with this particular project, but do you know of any other sites in these parking lots that are available for building? I mean, it's getting pretty crowded in there. There are?
Yes, but I'm not telling where.
Oh, thanks. Okay.
Yeah, there's a few. Not many. We're getting, like you said, we're getting kind of filled up down there.
I'd like to make a comment and pretend I'm not on this commission for a few minutes. That whole area is getting scary, Rob. There you go, my comment.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing is a transition from inline retail and restaurants to pad sites. I think you probably see some of those retail areas, as well as some that are over near the Eastfield Mall. Things are really changing. Amazon and other groups have certainly changed how we shop. So we're seeing a lot.
Rob, how much comp storage is left off of, what is that? 100 Acres Road, or what's that road where we have the comp storage?
Is it? Yeah.
South Meadow.
South Meadow. Thank you. Yeah. So there is there's already a surplus of created storage. So there's a significant amount that's still potentially available. And then they could create a lot more as necessary because the site has all the available grades. So it could be, more could be created if there was ever something that was, desirable. I do think, to your point, Jim, we're getting a little filled up down there.
Yeah.
Anna, do we have report from engineering?
I haven't received one yet.
Okay.
I received the DEP comments and answers to the DEP comments, but that's about it.
We did get a letter from the engineering department, Mr. Chairman, from Mark Crissati, sent to the planning board, that he did not have any comments on the stormwater.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Rob, what restaurant is planning to come in here?
Popeye's Chicken.
I'm sorry?
Popeye's Chicken.
Popeye's overpriced chicken sandwiches.
This it won't impact the Mexican place that's already there?
I don't know. Right? They probably do lunch and dinner similar. So I think they're all going to be fighting over our dollar.
Taco Bell does breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and Popeyes it's more of a lunch dinner type of place. They're not open late like Taco Bell is.
We have an expert.
Yeah.
Right. Did the commission want to wait and take a look at the DEP comments before we close this meeting?
I think we should, Mr. Chair. I really think we should follow.
I'd like to do that.
I mean, if I may,
Mr. Chairman,
I'm sorry. May I? This is Mark Newman with Brixmore Property Group. How are you?
Yes, Mark.
Hi, I work with Rob. I'm the applicant. First of all, we're happy to answer any questions that you have tonight. I think the DEP comments were very innocuous. There weren't very many of them. It probably would take you all 5 minutes to review. Our concern with pushing this out to a later date is it's already been pushed out once. The application through the planning board took upwards of 6 months to get through, and we're running into what we think are going to soon be, construction season that is going to run into winter. To the extent that this continues to get pushed back, it's likely that we wouldn't be able to start construction until later in the summer, once the building department has reviewed the application for, our construction documents. And it ends up being the kind of thing where you run into the holiday season. We really are, have been through a pretty extensive process with the planning board, and we've created a hefty amount of reserve compensatory storage here. The engineering department's answered all the, it didn't have any questions about the stormwater system. We would just ask you at this time to consider the application tonight, unless you really feel it necessary to take the time to review these comments from DEP.
Well, I do have those, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if you can see my screen, but there were 2 comments from DEP. Really, as Mr. Newman had mentioned, it's really not even real comments. So if you want to see, I don't know if you can read those, or I can read them to the commission if you'd like.
I can read them.
Yep.
But I can't read the date. When is this dated, Rob?
This is dated May 24th, but I think we received these. Was it as late as today, Anna? I don't know when they came in.
The comments I think I received right before the prior meeting, and then the answers I just received today.
I also can read them and do not have concerns.
Thank you.
All right. How about the rest of the commission?
I just have a question on how administratively, I guess, the existing comp storage and the use of that comp storage is documented for both projects so that it's clear. I'm unsure. I haven't been involved in this one, so I'm not sure how that's going to be handled.
If you'd like, Mr. Chairman, I can speak to that.
Yes.
So, Karen, when we did the Aldi project, we ended up creating an offsite comp storage area, which at the time of construction, we decided to amend and increase the comp storage area to include comp storage for this site, which was under the control of Brixmor, which was the proponent in the original notice, as well as creating some additional storage for an offsite location just down the way to the east where the Chipotle is being constructed. So both of those projects have been deducted from the total available in the Aldi's comp storage area off of South Meadow. So we're documenting the reduction for each of, so obviously for the Aldi, then we had a net surplus that was created. That was then Chipotle was deducted, as well as now the Popeyes chicken.
Gotcha. So at the time that the comp storage was created, it was acknowledged that certain portions were going to be used for these future projects.
It was acknowledged. I don't know how much it was acknowledged specifically for these future projects in the original filing, but when we requested to create additional storage, it was certainly acknowledged, at least for both of these projects.
Yeah, the amendment to the order of conditions acknowledges the addition of comp storage for future projects because it would cause more disturbance to add comp storage at a later date.
All right. To answer your question, Karen?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
I have a add-on to that though, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
So, Rob, on the plans you just showed us this evening, I think I saw a table at the top of the plan that might have had the calculations. So what I'm concerned with is the audit trail on the calculations, removing the comp storage from the gross amount available as part of this distribution. I just want to be sure we have a measurable, trackable audit trail. So did I see a table or not?
You did, but to your point, it was a great point. And to make it easier for the administrators going forward, what we should probably do is in order for this, tie an as-built comp storage memo back to the other order somehow. And Karen could probably speak to this better because she knows how your filing system works. But you would want not only when somebody's looking, this is all one parcel for us, right? But when somebody's looking at future work on other parcels that might be involved in this, I think it's good for us to all track back to the same order that was used to create the offsite comp storage area. So I think we have to track everything back to that. So this would be a separate order. So I think Karen, maybe you could speak to this. Maybe we refer back to the order, or have the as-built for this track back to the other order. I don't know what you think.
Right. I think a condition could reference the first order and how much comp storage it's taking from there. And we could document it that way if that's what the commission wants.
That would cover part of it. But if somebody was not aware of the distribution of comp storage from the original site, and they only went to that original site regarding getting information for all these, let's say, how would they know? So somehow that order of conditions has to be amended again And I don't know how one applicant can ask for a change of an order for another applicant's project. And we're getting off into areas I'm not aware of. All I know is it's looking messy for the future. So I understand what Rob's saying. Rob's saying makes sense for this project, but it's got to be noted with the Aldi project too.
If I may, I did agree. I don't agree with Rob often, but I did agree with him in this case where he said you can handle it, the first one in a certificate of compliance kind of document, at that time. You wouldn't have to amend the current order, just when it's closed out, then recognize what's been used.
Or submit a new okay, all right. I understand. All right, and now I know what you're saying.
Okay. So the documents would be attached to the as-built plans.
Right.
And the certificates of compliance.
Right.
Okay.
But what if they're already issued? Now they're not.
So I can speak to that. I think the best way to do it, and Karen, correct me if I'm wrong, would be when all these order of conditions is when we're requesting a certificate of compliance on that, we would need to provide as-built information for the Aldi, for the Popeye's Chicken, and actually for the other applicant's project for the Chipotle. And then we would have to show the commission that the order had been satisfied accurately, or that we have a certain whatever we have at that point. I think that would be the way to track it, because all three of the construction projects are associated with this one order that has the comp storage.
And all three construction projects are by Brixmore?
No,
Correct?
only two.
No, only
So
two.
just to
Okay.
clarify, the Aldi and the Popeye's Chicken are by Brixmore. Henry
Rob,
Resnikoff is the proponent on the other one.
correct me if I'm wrong, Rob, but didn't the permit to compensatory storage work, and didn't the order of conditions at that time, as I recollect, it had all three projects. It had the Popeyes, the Aldi, and it had the Chipotle, the off-site one, all calculated and all sort of credited against the amount of comp storage that was dug.
Yep, and it did, and that's absolutely correct. So what we're saying is that when the certificate of compliance for the order that holds the comp storage area gets closed out, we'll need to make sure we document that all three of those sites have been constructed properly and tie those to the certificate of compliance on that order.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, that should satisfy everybody, I think.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the commission? Is there consensus to close this public hearing?
Just a quick comment, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Is there going to be outdoor dining? Because that's been brought up to us too, that certain people afterwards wanted to do outdoor dining, and then we had to figure out.
I can speak to that, Mark. So we did talk to the Chairman Corellis has been a proponent of outdoor dining, which is a great idea. In this particular case, the site does not really afford any safe locations for that. The planning board, I believe, understands that, and we discussed that. So at this point, there will be no outdoor dining associated directly with this.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Any comments from the audience concerning this particular project? All right.
I'll make a motion that we close this hearing.
All right. Do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second the motion.
All right. Do we have any further discussion? Seeing none. Bob,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Carl,
Yes.
Lauren,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes as well. All right. let's look over the conditions then. You can stop sharing, Rob. Thank you. Anna, can you post the?
Yep.
All right, so just, get past the general ones to the next category. Okay, prior to construction, do we have a SWIP plan, Rob, for this one? Or Karen, or sorry, Karen or Anna, do we have a SWIP plan for this one?
I don't know.
Hey, sorry, guys. No SWIP, under an acre.
All right, thank you. All right, okay, 52, deed recording, yes. DEP sign, yes. Deed restriction language, yes. Yeah, there's no wildlife habitat. 56, yes. 57, yes. 58, yes. 59, yes, construction sequence. That's on the plan probably. Erosion controls. Yes.
Do you think there's need?
Oh,
Just because it's a floodplain, it's,
you're right. And it is all asphalt already.
right. I mean, where would they put them?
Okay, let's skip that one. 61, yes, pre-construction meeting. Emergency contact, yes. 48-hour notice, yes. There's no Title V. There's no water quality. There's no markers. No signage. Okay, comp storage, yes. There's no temporary basins. There's no trees. No permanent basins. No salt sign. Yeah, what about, I guess, how do you clean off? Is there any plan for, removal of snow, using salt and so on?
I don't think it's applicable.
Okay. All right, so then we go on to item 4. There's no erosion control, so we'll skip that one. There's no, okay, stormwater structures. I don't remember from the plan if there are any stormwater structures.
There has to be.
I was believing there was, yeah.
Okay. All right, so we'll just put that one there. Next one, yes. All right, street sweeping.
Yes, I would say yes.
Okay. There's no entrance. I think they have to use the main entrance for the parking lot. Deed restriction. I guess not.
Those are for subdivision.
Well, if they have stormwater management structures on the property, wouldn't they then need this?
Is this more for housing developments, or Karen, you know more?
This was more for subdivisions when we had a lot of subdivisions years ago, and they were having one lot as their stormwater.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right.
There's no monitor involved?
No.
No snow dewatering?
No.
No dredging? No replication? Come on, completion, yes. So 107, yes. We can skip 108. 109, yes, certificate of compliance. Future buyer, yes. 111, yes, structure maintenance. Maintenance plan.
Yes.
Yep.
They should have one, yeah.
Yeah. 113, yes, perpetuity. And a bond.
I would propose it's the same bond as the other 2 restaurants being built right now. I don't remember what Chipotle was or what we did. I don't remember.
I mean, there's not, I mean, how much damage they can do to a wetland.
No, I mean, I don't think we did much of a bond on the, I just, in a sense of fairness, and it's just, you know, they're not gonna really mess it up that much, but we need to protect the city.
You have a suggestion, anyone?
Aldi's was a $15,000 bond.
Yeah, that was, all right, let's go with 5,000. I'm okay with 5,000 on this one.
Okay, so
I can't fathom what 5,000 I'm proposing.
Yep, I'm good with 5.
Yeah. I guess if we had to re-asphalt the area, if they did something, okay. Okay, so any other special conditions?
I'm only concerned with the one that references comp storage. Can we just look at the language on that one?
Okay.
Just to be sure, because we have this kind of unusual situation with the other two. Okay,
What
no
number it is?
no,
It's like 86.
yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, it was before that.
Stormwater.
There you go. Okay, so that doesn't say anything outside of what we're doing. Okay, so I'm okay with that.
Okay. All right, any other special conditions to add?
Well, is regarding 68, could you bring that up a little bit, Mr. Chairman?
Anna's got it, I don't.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, no, back to the comp storage one.
That is the one.
Well, maybe it's just my screen, the way it's looking. Okay. So we've got the tape. So we've got the calculations. We've got them. And so then what I want to propose is that, as was discussed with the applicant, you know, they provide more detail on the distribution of the storage, and also get it recorded with the Aldi or project, or however they're going to do it. Karen, do you have any thoughts on that?
Were you saying before you were going to require it when they requested the COC, and then in their documentation they would have to prove to you this is how much we used?
Okay.
Was that what you were looking at before? I thought. I mean, you could handle it either or. You could put it here, or you could put it in the COC request, or at the end, like number 108 or whatever.
I'm having a hard time hearing you, Karen. You've got an echo.
Sorry. So you could have it as part of the COC request, where when they come to you to close the project out, they say, okay, or you say to them, you want a documentation of how much comp storage is used, and that will be, part of the record. Or you can put it in here as to how much, reference the previous project, all these projects, 333
I think the previous project, which is the source of the comp storage, essentially, be referenced. And as maybe a special order, we could do a special condition referencing 68, though, or in
addition.
addition.
Right in here. Just throw it right in here. Just have the language.
Fine.
They're allowed so much comp storage as was approved under 333 blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
However you want to reference it. Yeah.
I think that works.
I would suggest putting it in both places.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could put the calculation right into this order of conditions of how much compensatory. I mean, we could just attach the calculations to this.
Okay. And then we'll put it in the certificate of compliance as well, so that it's well documented in a variety of places. Okay, any other concerns?
None, Mr. Chairman, but I have.
Okay, anyone else on the commission? All right, entertain a motion then to approve the order of conditions as written.
So moved.
Do we have a second? Do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
All right. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Jim?
Yes.
Carl,
Yes.
Lauren,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Tom.
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well. Thank you. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Good luck, guys.
Okay.
Have a good night.
All right. Thank you. All right. Item 5, enforcement. Zero Bayberry Lane.
They requested an extension.
All right. Do you have a motion to extend to, was it
June 14th.
June 14th, 6/14?
So moved.
Have a second.
I'll second it.
Second.
All right. All in favor? Lauren,
Yes.
Carl, Bob,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Tom,
I'll vote yes.
Jim. Oh, Jim's left the room for a moment. I'll vote yes. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, item B, Zero Bayberry Lane.
They also
Mhm.
requested an extension.
All right, we have a motion to extend to June 5th, June
Do
14th.
they still owe us information? The first one,
Yes, they do still owe information to us. So for 46R68, we're waiting to redo the delineation once some vegetation grows back and the lot settles a little bit more. For 46R59, the restoration plan was due today, but an extension was requested again. And then also 300 Union Street, they requested an extension. I received these all at like 4 o'clock today.
they're all part of Levesque, right?
Correct.
All under his wing.
All right.
Yeah,
item B,
I'll
do we have
make a motion that we,
extend?
if you're ready, Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion that we extend the enforcement.
Okay, this is for B, Zero Bayberry Lane.
That's
Do I have a
correct.
Second.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor? Lauren,
Yes.
Carl,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Tom,
I'll vote yes.
Jim.
Yes.
I'll vote yes. Do we have a motion to extend item C, 300 Union Street to
I'll make that motion.
6/14?
I'll
I'll make
second that.
All right. Okay, all in favor? Lauren,
Yes.
Carl,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Tom.
I'm sorry. I need to ask what we're voting on. I
This is
lost track.
item C, 300 Union Street, an extension.
300 Union Street.
Thank you. I'll vote yes.
All right, Jim.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have a motion and second on that one, Anna?
That may be why I'm confused. Was there a motion?
thought
Yes,
there
I
was-
made the motion.
Okay, who seconded it?
I think Lauren.
Lauren? Okay, thank you. All right, item D, 240 Russell Road, Oscar, no, Oscar's not with us anymore. Rob, are you?
I'm not
part of
sure.
this? Pardon? Okay,
My connection's really bad right now. I'm not sure if he received the enforcement order just because I didn't receive a green slip back. But
So
as you can
he
see
may
in the
not be
notes,
aware
we
of it?
issued an enforcement
Okay.
concerning A through F.
all right, so.
I wondered if legally, if it should go to his brother, if it's his brother that owns the property. Is that what Oscar told us tonight? Angel?
Yes,
I don't have contact for Angel Harbor.
all right. So you're not sure if he received this yet?
Correct.
Okay. All right, so let's,
Wouldn't his contact be part of the, when you look up the deed or look up the address?
Oh, maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe
I think we should
change
send it out to the owner of the property, not the brother.
You know, I echo what Tom's saying. He's the legal owner of it. And has the responsibility for, but yeah, I wonder if he can give this some more investigation on how do we get his name and address. Oscar may just provide it if we ask him.
yeah, the assessor's office should have that too. Yeah.
Yes, you're right.
All right, so
I will work on that.
entertain a motion to continue this one. Item D.
So
Do
moved.
you have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, Lauren,
Yes.
Carl,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Jim.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll vote yes as well. All right, item 3, E, 291 Loomis Street. Again, continue from 5/10/22. Clear cutting without a permit, potentially in the 200-foot riverbank. Again, you're not sure if they received a letter.
I once again have not received a receipt saying so. I sent it via certified mail and I sent the letter via regular mail. They have made no efforts to contact, and I know that the work continues.
When we send a letter certified, usually in 2 days, doesn't it come back? I mean, the owner doesn't have to accept it, but the
Yes.
mail, we didn't get that back?
Well, as far as they should receive it within 2 days, but I might not get the letter back for a month. That actually recently just happened with an order of conditions that we issued. It was sent out on March 28th, and I received it end of April as failed to deliver.
It was sent out as certified mail.
Correct.
I thought there was a lot faster than that. I'd recommend we send another certified mail out if we haven't heard back. The other option, Anna, is to get the local police guys involved and have them knock on the door. I'd vote for that too. So
we've certainly done that in the past where we issue a personal cease and desist with assistance from the police department. And so, if we've, I guess, and so you sent this out in March. I'm sorry, when did you send this out, Anna?
That's right. I did last meeting.
Yeah,
it was on the meeting.
A couple weeks ago.
Yes. I sent it out the week prior.
As we've done this in the past, is it the police or the sheriff's department we use?
There is one police officer dedicated to assist our department. I don't know who that officer is, Anna. You probably know who it is better.
Okay.
We do have someone that are.
All right.
It's Eric, I believe.
Eric
I can't remember his last name. Eric Hall.
All right, so he would accompany someone out there with the letter. Okay.
Yes. Have we tried calling them, Anna? I mean, just a phone call. I mean, just to get them to stop.
Is there a way that I can find that?
Google.
If Google actually were to work.
The city clerk or assessor might have that information.
Okay, I can try to give them a phone call.
Thank you.
All right. So we'll have a motion to continue item E.
I'll make the motion.
I'll make a.
All right, you have a second? You can second that, Carl?
Yeah, shall we make the, I wasn't quite clear on the motion. Is the motion to ask Anna to try to contact them by phone?
The motion actually was to continue it. The discussion we had doesn't need to be part of that motion. We're just saying, hey, we'll look at it again in 2 weeks. In the meantime, the administrator will follow up, hopefully.
But Tom, though, if the tree cutting is continuing and damage continues in a resource area, 2 weeks is a broad expanse of time. And
we need a motion to authorize the police. Maybe we do.
We do. We've already sent it. It hasn't been acknowledged, hasn't been received. So there's got to be another methodology.
Yeah. Hey, Bob, would you amend your motion to that effect?
Yes, I would.
All right. Do you have a second?
I'll second the amended motion.
Okay, all in favor. Lauren?
Yes.
Carl?
Yes.
Bob?
Tom or Bob, I'm sorry.
Bob, sorry.
Yes.
Tom?
Bob or Tom?
Tom, you.
Tom will vote yes.
Okay, Jim?
I'm Jim, and I say yes.
Okay. Oh, yes as well. Thank you. All right, item F. It is getting late. 33 First Street. Non-compliance with order conditions.
This is a
from
fun
last
one.
year.
They've built the entire house. When I was there, I want to say on the 13th of this month, 13th of May, there was no erosion control at all. I went back today and there's brand new erosion control on the property. So they still never filed their bond. We have no record of any environmental monitoring, no letter of understanding, no receipt for recording of the deed, and then the debris is still in the front yard.
Has this been communicated to Jeanette?
I need you guys to ratify the non-compliance letter that I issued them. Essentially, I believe, right, Karen?
Well, you don't need to ratify the letter, but if you issued enforcement.
Okay. No, I didn't issue enforcement. Okay.
And that's okay. You can do that. You can issue enforcement and then bring it to the commission at the next meeting, and then they ratify.
Okay. No, I just issued a cease and desist violation letter based on the fact that the erosion control is brand spanking new. I'm going to assume that they received it. However, I did not get any certificate of receipt or anything like that.
But in the letter you sent out, you listed these 5 things or
correct
4 things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'd agree with you. I would say that they received that letter. I don't really, David, how do we handle this one? I don't know that we've had anyone who has not paid the bond or anyone who has not.
Yeah, I don't know what our legal recourse would be if they don't pay the bond.
Yeah.
Well, this is so unusual, very unusual.
Could we fine them each day?
We could.
A lot of days.
We can.
Well,
yeah, we can.
If they're just dumping in soil and debris and anyways, regardless of the order of conditions, then it's, they're interfering with the resource area.
So essentially reach out to Shanna.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Any suggestions, Karen?
I would issue enforcement. Immediately cease and desist, or require them to hire a consultant and show you how they have complied with the order, because you don't know the date, you don't know what they've done.
Right.
So force them to hire a consultant. That way, they're going to have to spend money and prove to you that they have complied with, at least from this point on, the order.
Okay. How's that to the commission? Is that would you like to do
that sounds good.
In the motion? Okay. All right. So that appears to be another letter that would go out to them.
It'd be the enforcement order itself. So you would approve Anna to send it out. So you do cease and desist and say, hire a consultant to review what you've done and the permit, and give them 2 weeks or whatever. Come to the meeting and show us how you've complied or whatever.
Okay. All right, good. Do we have a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion to that effect, yes.
All right, have a second.
Yes, I'll second Carl's motion.
You want like 2 weeks? Like
Yeah.
It'll take them it might take them a little bit to get a consultant. You might want to give them 4 weeks.
Well, let's get their attention. 2 weeks.
Okay, 2 weeks.
Yeah, let's say 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Okay.
Okay, all in favor, Lauren?
Do we invite her as part of that motion? Do we invite her to a meeting? Ask her to attend our meeting?
I would say also contact the office immediately.
Okay.
And then come to the meeting. Yeah.
And come to the meeting? Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So all in favor, Lauren?
Yes.
Carl?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes as well. Thank you. All right, item 6, certificate of compliance. Okay, you did a site visit. This is on the pond?
I got a phone call from Erin Masters, who is the applicant, along with Lee Masters. Her concern was that there's no longer a slope that is behind the retaining wall, that was initially designed in the site plan. So instead of having the retaining wall and then a slope going down, the retaining wall just extends all the way out to where the slope would have been. So they did not know if you still wanted vegetation to be planted there, which was required by the order of conditions.
Well, there's no place to plant it now, right?
There is no slope to plant it, correct?
Okay.
But there is an option to ask them, I mean, if it would provide shade, we could ask him to, plant it 10 feet to the left or whatever.
I know that Aaron had mentioned adding in some native vegetation just for aesthetic purposes as well.
Mhm. As an alternative for putting on the slope?
Just in general.
Okay. And that seems like a good idea, yeah.
I'm sorry, what was the reason for the change, Anna? They said there's no longer a slope as was planned. What was the reason for that?
I am not sure what the reason was.
Did you
I know
see
that
the reason in the field? I mean, does it make sense to you?
I can share the photos. It made sense to me in the sense of there was a tire bank there, and so now it just extends all the way out to where that tire bank used to be. So instead of like the downhill slope with the tire bank, it's now just the extension of the wall. I don't know. I see Lee's here. The tires are gone, correct. I see Lee's here. I don't know if he can speak more to it. If the commission would so like.
I don't remember a slope being proposed behind the retaining wall.
Maybe it was
when I was
out
out there originally. Okay, Lee, do you want to address this?
Yeah, originally we thought the wall was going to be lower than it ended up being.
Okay.
Originally it was going to be like a 17-degree slope, and it ended up coming up almost to zero. It just, the way the wall ended up. We didn't realize that the ground level was as high up as it was. So once we put the wall in place right on top of the ground, it just came up even.
Okay. But it's nice and stable now?
Yes, yeah, we put a real nice retaining wall in.
And all the tires are
It's
gone?
very stable. It's very beautiful.
Yep, all the tires are gone.
So could you put some plantings elsewhere on the property to enhance it?
We did. We've put in like a blueberry bush down bottom by the water. We did a tree. The original design had called for plantings on the slope, but now that the slope's not there, but we did do some other plants. We did some ornamental grass and stuff like that.
Okay.
How many plantings did it call for? Lee, do you remember?
Offhand, I don't know exactly how many plants were going to be on the slope. I think it was like 16 maybe. Wasn't a lot.
Pull it up. I don't believe it was a lot either.
I remember visiting this site. I remember talking to Lee. I didn't meet Aaron, but came away with the impression that these guys are good people. I have no problem eliminating the requirement for vegetation on the slope, as there is no more slope. What I'm trying to say is I think that they'll landscape their property appropriately.
And if I could just add something too, anywhere that we did disturb, it's all fresh grass now in plantings. We used erosion control mats. We covered the entire yard with them, and we planted grass, and it's come up so thick and strong
it looks
now.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Anna, are there controls that still need to be removed?
Correct.
Okay. Is it
It's
time?
a biodegradable straw erosion control.
Okay. Is it time for that to happen, you think?
I would say so. Yes, the grass has grown in well. I would agree that the roots of the grass are probably stable enough that they will not erode anymore.
Is this a erosion controls where you just cut it and leave the stuff to rot?
I believe that's
Yes.
how it would work. Yeah.
It is, okay. And you mentioned there's an oak sapling that needs to be moved?
Yeah, so Aaron had brought it up to me that the oak sapling where it's currently located, as the tree grows, it will grow too big. So it may have to be moved to a separate location. And that was the sapling that was required to be planted, having taken down the previous oak tree there.
And you're happy with where they want to move it?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So are there any other questions concerning the certificate by the commission?
Lee, did we bond this with you? Did you put a bond down with us?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll when you're ready, I'll make a a motion that we approve the COC.
If I may, administratively, do we have the COC request in? It's a Form 8. They also need to submit as-built plans with an additional letter from an engineer or someone of that caliber stating that it was built to what was required under the orders, or if there was a change.
Per the order of conditions to have a letter.
So it's required under the regulations. When they request a certificate of compliance, they have to submit the Form 8, 2, the as-built plans, and 3, a letter from an engineer or someone of that caliber that can state definitively that the project was built as to it was permitted, or there was changes and these are the changes.
Okay, I do have the application. I do not believe I have a letter.
Okay, it's a form. It's a DEP form.
Yep.
You can get it online. So this is
I have
DEP
that part.
form. As-built. Do we have as-built? They got to be stamped as-built, and you got to have the letter. So we need some additional information.
Okay, so I was getting a little bit ahead of myself. Instead, is an appropriate motion to waive the requirement for vegetation on the slope tonight, and then allow the applicant to submit the CFC request?
Just a comment on that, because in the order of conditions, it says a written statement from the applicant and our consultant affirming that all erosion controls have been removed and all distributed areas are stabilized, is the only thing that is listed there under the COC requirements. And then obviously the WPA Form 8A. And then I know farther up in the conditions, it's required that the coordinator reviews the erosion control prior to removal. So for the order of conditions, they had to submit WPA Form 8A, and then on top of it, the written statement from the applicant confirming that the erosion controls are removed. However, they can't remove them without my approval, which I had to bring to you guys, I think. I'm not sure how that chain of command works.
Yep. The question for us tonight is, do we still want vegetation planted on a slope that no longer exists? Do we need to be formal and make a motion? Or at least I would vote for a motion that we no longer require vegetation for a slope that no longer exists. Or I guess what you're saying, Ann, is we can do it as part of the CFC.
You could do it part of the COC, yes, you could reference it.
Let's have that motion now so everything's clean. And then the applicant can remove the erosion controls, or at least cut the tubes and so that they are removed, and then get the letters and the form for our next meeting. And that should satisfy the requirements, correct?
Okay. In that case, my motion is that we no longer require vegetation being planted on the slope as indicated in the earlier order.
All right, do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second that. And do we need to add to that it's okay to remove the erosion controls now? Okay, so with that amendment?
Yep, happy to add that. Thank you.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Lauren?
Yes.
Carl?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well. Thank you. All right, item B, 109 North Road. They want a certificate.
Yeah, so same story there. They still have the erosion controls up. There's mulch across the slope up front. I can pull up the photo. It was just concerned for me because me being a person walking across it, trying to look at everything, I was definitely sliding down the slope.
Okay. Yeah, why don't you show us some pictures?
Yes.
I get confused with North Road. Is this out near Wyven, or is this?
Take a left at the Cumberland Farms and just keep going.
Take the left.
At the Cumberland Farms that's on Southampton.
So it's part of the Hamden Ponds area?
No.
Other way.
No.
Towards Wyben.
Towards Wyben, yeah.
It's actually pretty close to Wyben Road.
Yeah, all right. So it's up by Allen Tree Farm?
Yeah, not too far away, I don't think.
So this is the front of the property. They have sprayed what I'm assuming is hydro seed, but when I went to visit it on the 13th, there was no regrowth yet. I didn't get to head back over there last week or today. And then if my computer will go to the next image. Or not at all. Cool. Erosion control has fallen in a few places, so it was not maintained.
Anna, question. Is this property on the left-hand side of the road as you're going away
Yes,
from?
it was the construction of a new home.
And it's got a long driveway?
Correct.
Okay, I remember going out to the site several times.
They do have the signage in place.
Okay.
And everything of the sorts. The driveway remains gravel. It's not paved at all. Until you get up to the house where there's a small paved slab area.
So if the site's not stable, then I don't see how we can give them a certificate.
Was it supposed to be planted or was that approved, all the mulch? Was that part of the?
There was nothing there that I could see in the file about mulch. It falls under local ordinance only. Here's a better angle. So right here would be the downward slope into the erosion control there, which I would assume if there was a rain event that mulch would then wash down should that erosion control not to be there.
So what did the original plans show? Did it show this area to be mulched or?
The original plans, I can pull it up. I have the physical file because I can never find it in the order of conditions or in the ORAD folder.
And did they even topsoil it? I mean, it's hard to tell if they.
Yeah. There is no notice in the plan. It just says a 2-to-1 slope. Will be there, but there's no notice of filling it with mulch or anything of the sort.
I remember going out there, well, this is probably a couple of years ago. There was no mention of mulching it. Our assumption was they were going to grass this.
Yes, it's the order of conditions is not I would say not specific to the sense of they just require so it's number 76 from this one. Upon completion of construction with permanent stabilization, all disturbed area shall be permanently stabilized with rapidly growing cover in a minimum of 4 to 6 inches of organic topsoil. But then it says parentheses if necessary, or comma if necessary. And a USDA Natural Resource Conservation Service approved native seed mixture, which should be used in accordance with measures outlined. So it depends on your interpretation of that condition, but it would say the way I read it was organic topsoil if necessary. Ooh, my computer's gonna die.
Which condition number was this?
In the file specifically, it's 76, but it's I don't know what the original number would be before altering the document. It would be upon completion of construction, section 6, and it is permanent stabilization.
Okay.
What is the proximity from the bottom of the slope where you see the silt fence to the wetland? How close are we talking?
The bottom of the slope there is right at the 50-foot border.
Okay.
To its nearest point anyways. Its nearest point of the slope is right at the 50-foot line.
Did we ask for signage, Anna?
Yep, there is signs around the property. They appear to be 50 feet apart.
But
I think they need to plant some grass there and stabilize that, or it's just going to all end up in the wetland.
Correct.
How stable is that soil right now when you walk on it with the mulch on it?
Considering I was just in flat shoes walking across it with the mulch, I was sliding down.
So it's not stable.
No, not at all. But you can see, you know, over on this side, there is the soil and the hydro seed, or what I think is hydro seed. I couldn't really tell. Unfortunately, the property and homeowner was away, so I couldn't speak to him on the matter. I don't know if he's here. I did send the link to them. But again, I think it was an interpretation of the condition that it's topsoil if necessary, and they instead chose to do mulch.
I mean, considering that slope, it'd be nice if they did what the previous applicant did and put down a mat and seeded the mat to stabilize that whole area.
Yes, I agree.
So I mean, personally, I don't think that's.
It definitely needs
acceptable
some
the
root
way it is.
growth in order to prevent the slope from eroding.
So
Did we get a Form A? Did we get as-built letters?
I got a Form A, absolutely no letters. The Form A also that I received is a photo, so I can't print it.
So yeah, I think they haven't submitted the proper documentation for the request. And at that point, I think when they submit as-built, you can address whether or not this has stabilized by then. Because if they have hydroseeded, then maybe a couple of weeks will be all right. Maybe it won't.
but they've only hydroseeded the upper third.
It's only hydroseeded here. All the rest on the physical slope, this is all mulch here.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So yeah, it may not work at all.
Yeah, so that needs to be addressed, I think. Because originally that hump wasn't there. I mean, I think they put that in there because of septic concerns and raised it.
Yes. It was an increase in elevation.
Right. Okay.
So they probably don't want to plant anything other than grass on top of septic, right?
Well, that's the house, the corner, isn't it?
Well,
Yeah,
I think it's the lawn. I'm sorry, I don't know where this is.
So right over here, this is the house. The septic is over here,
in the
on the back side of the property, the back right side.
So, yeah, that slope needs to be stable and seeded, or else that mulch is all going to end up in the wetland.
Okay.
And I know it's an isolated one, it's an ordinance, but I know when Meredith and I went out there, we spent a lot of time with them delineating that and making sure that they stayed away from it. And they've got a long driveway that snakes its way through the forest, to get to this property. It's a pretty long driveway, and the wetlands between the road and the house.
Did they cross the wetland or go around it?
They went around it.
Okay.
So, and it is signed well. They have good signage out there. But this needs to be addressed, I think, before we can issue a certificate. All right. So you want to respond to them after they put in the application, or just tell them now that we're not going to approve anything until that is
I will respond to them tomorrow when I get into the office. I'll give them a phone call,
All right,
because
thank
I explained to them. They said, "Well, will I get my COC?" And I'm like, "That's for the commission to decide, not for me."
Okay.
And make sure they submit the correct documentation, otherwise it's not going to go forward.
Just tell them of our concerns.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, item 7.
Do we need a motion for 109 North Road?
I'll make a motion for you, Anna. I'll make a motion that we instruct the administrator to communicate with the applicant that the area in question needs to be vegetated prior to CSC. And we need to have the as-built plan, as Karen pointed out.
And how about I don't know, a proper copy of the form? Not a photograph? Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
At least the PDF file, Okay. All right. Do you have a second?
I'll second.
All right. All in favor? Tom,
I'll vote yes.
Jim,
Yeah.
Carl,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Lauren.
Yes.
I'll vote yes. Thank you. All right. Item 7, do we have approval of minutes of April 26, 2022?
I'll move that we approve those.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Any additions or corrections?
Yeah, on the minutes, Anna, on the minutes of 426, they're actually labeled 412 at the top of the minutes themselves, so you'll want to make that change. Carl, did you motion both or just the one?
I was just motioning the one. I had something for B.
Yep, that would be my only correction.
Okay. All in favor? Tom,
I'll vote yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Carl,
Yes.
Lauren,
Yes.
Bob.
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes of May 10, 2022?
I'll make it 510. 6B. Anna, you've got me. I love doing it. I love the idea of doing it. You've got me making the motion and the second. And
Oh,
they
no.
don't. David doesn't let me do that.
What do you mean? It
But
should be allowed.
With that small correction, the minutes looked fine. So I will make the motion.
Oh,
You have a question?
I had a small change to the minutes of 510 as well.
Okay, go ahead.
In C part items A and B, there's no record of my positive vote on either of those. So if we just add those, then I'll be happy.
I think we
Fair
lost you.
request.
She said something about her computer being running on low.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
All right. Do we have a second then?
So with those corrections, yes, I will second.
Okay. Who made that motion? Tom?
I did.
Mhm.
Okay. Any further discussion or any additions or corrections? Seeing none, all in favor? Tom,
Yes.
Carl,
Yes.
Lauren,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Jim,
Yeah.
and I'll vote yes as well. Okay, item 8, condition discussions. A, regulations and procedures.
Did I hear Lauren make a second to a motion? Or did my ears?
I
think
did.
so. Yeah.
Way to be, Lauren.
All righty. Okay, item B, remind to stop in the office and sign the WPA forms by 5/30/2022. So get in there and sign the forms. Okay. Item C, request for using funds for the coordinator to attend upcoming MACC classes. Again, that's something that we can do with our NOI money, correct, Karen?
Yes.
And I know, that's also for commissioners as well.
Yes.
Take advantage of those. At least do the 8 introductory sessions that they offer. You get a nice certificate saying you're an expert on conservation commissions then. No, I hope they get back going to Holy Cross in April because it's a really great day out there.
They have good classes, good speakers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Mm.
Okay, item D.
Wait, did you vote on that? Did you actually vote on
I'm
that?
sorry. Okay.
Well, we're really not much to vote on. I mean, it's been a policy. The city has always been very proactive as far as allowing people to go to conferences. But if it's a specific request, if it's a dollar request, that would be on the reimbursement form, right? On the
Hello. I don't know if
Vince?
anyone realized I got disconnected.
Yeah, we figured that out.
What
Well,
happened?
it may be
with
something,
the
Tom,
minutes?
that the auditor requests. So let's just do the vote anyway, just to cover ourselves. All right,
Sure.
so I request a
I'll make-
motion to permit the coordinator to use funds, NOI funds, to attend MACC classes.
So moved.
Wait.
What?
Because I missed the entire conversation. I already talked to Tammy about it in the I believe the funds, there's like funds available to attend the classes. It's like $2,000. So she said that she would approve any purchase order requests that I put through.
So she doesn't need any motion from us about it?
I don't know. So I figured I would ask y'all anyways. Because I didn't know if I needed y'all's permission since I just got in that document of all your signatures the other day. I think I had this on the agenda before I handed in that paperwork that says that I can use the funds.
In the past, when Karen wanted to go to a conference, she would submit paperwork to us beforehand saying, hey, I'm going to this thing in Boston, and you know, the fee to go was like $100 or whatever. I suspect we want to be consistent and do the same here.
Yeah, these are all virtual, so they're just all through Zoom. So I would still be around in the office probably.
All right, so let's just make a motion so that it gives the minutes a way of showing that we are aware of what's going on here. So will somebody make a motion, please?
I'll make the motion then that we authorize the use of NOI funds to support the coordinator attending WMACC classes.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, any further discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask, I think, Carl, you made the motion?
Yes.
Could you add the coordinator and the commissioners also? Those of us that may want to attend also.
Okay, I'm willing to accept that addition, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, who seconded it? You accept it?
I did.
You're all set?
Yes.
Okay. All right, all in favor, Carl,
Yes.
Lauren,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Jim,
Yeah.
and I'll vote yes as well. Thank you. Okay, finally, item D, the tree policy.
At this late hour, I don't think we really can impact it too greatly. I would say that, I mean, you led the charge, but with the ordinance update, have Anna send out an electronic copy of the tree policy to all of us. You know, we individually review it and make comments back.
Yeah, so
I mean, we could.
my purpose for this is just to even see if you are open to redrafting it.
Well, clearly, I think that we should be open to redrafting it. Mm-hmm. Perhaps we didn't take a hard enough look at it. Anna, when you and I spoke briefly about this, you indicated you had done some research already and found other town policies that seemed to be strong, but not as strong as the one we put into effect. Do you want to speak to that real quick?
Yeah, so a lot of I actually found these policies within the Conservation Commission shared file. So I assume that's what that Westfield's policy was based on, except Westfield's policy seemed to be completely the opposite. For instance, one of the policies, I think was from Wheaton, Mass, and the other was from Wakefield. And they both have different mitigation tactics. For instance, Wheaton requires, they have an identification of size of trees. So a small tree is between 4 to 10 inches in diameter at DBH. A medium tree is 10 to 20 inches in diameter DBH, and then 20 plus inches diameter DBH is a large tree. And from there, they specify like if it's under 4 inches, that's up to general discretion of the commission of what to do about those trees, and then they suggest certain mitigation techniques. So, for instance, for removal of 5 medium-sized trees, they would substitute it by replacing 2 tree saplings or X number of shrubs. So instead of having the current like 1-to-5 ratio that Westfield currently has for a tree of that size, it is more of a 5-to-1 ratio, so to speak. So they essentially like stand of trees removed, here's what you have to do. It's a lesser value, but in the sense of restoring and conservation. And then I know that the Wakefield one had to do with the caliper size of the trees and the size of them in general. And it was up to the commission to determine how many. So that one was less specific.
And would it be a huge project on your part to work up a draft proposal to the commission? Maybe take a look
I already did it yesterday.
Take a look at what we have currently and compare it to perhaps one town, perhaps 2 other town policies. Kind of what you just did, except on a more thorough basis. Or have you already done that?
I did it yesterday, actually. I wrote up the draft in case y'all decided that you were open to redrafting the current policy.
And how did you come to that draft? What did you use to make these?
I reorganized it, and I kind of combined the 2 examples that I had with the current one. So I was going to share a meeting, but I can't get back into it on my laptop. It won't let me.
Well, at this hour again, that's a blessing. But
yeah.
maybe
I'm just
that's
in the waiting room on my laptop. Oh, they're being connected. Thanks, Peter.
I did not know that you had done that kind of homework. Maybe that's what you should circulate to us electronically so that we can digest it and be ready to talk about it at a future meeting.
I'm back in person, kind of, sort of. I can just show you briefly what I did. If I can pull it up. I reformatted it so it's a lot easier to read too. So this is essentially what I redrafted. I kind of followed the layout that other commissions had used. I dropped my pen on the ground, which essentially explains, what the commission is, where their jurisdiction lies. And then I actually, this paragraph here is from the enforcement order. Believe it or not, just stating like, hey, all these activities may be subject to this tree policy. And then the purpose of the document, which is, this is taken directly from the current policy. And then what the document's purpose is, that unpermitted tree cutting will be in enforcement orders. And handled through that route. And then the policy is simply, as of right now, how I wrote it, no trees may be cut from jurisdictional areas unless permission has been granted by the commission, and such policy applies to all areas, whether natural or landscaped. This is up for debate of what areas it would apply to. For instance, or like how you want to apply it. For instance, did you just want to apply this tree policy to restoration of the 50-foot buffer zone, or if you wanted to apply it to larger scale construction of homes when you're clearing acres? I think that's definitely something that needs to be addressed through this policy, is to what scenario, because it is open to the commission's discretion, and I left that in here. The commission may exercise its discretion in the application of this policy when space is limited. And then I just brought that all the way down to, oh, it's gone. Well, there was a footer here. It didn't save. But essentially conditions for removal or reasons for removal. So if it's a safety threat or prevents substantial use of the landowner's property. So these are kind of like all things that I felt were missing from the current policy, is reasons, conditions, and then what types of trees were subject to the policy. Because to me personally, a tree that is less than 6 inches in diameter at the current policy stating is very broad, because you're referring to everything from a small little sapling all the way up to a more adult grown tree, versus if you designate a size range of small trees, whether it's 4 to 10 or 5 to 15 or things like that, that gives a more conclusive implementation. And then this is just kind of what I had drafted up for now is, hey, you're removing a small tree as classified by this diameter. You have to plant 1 native tree sapling per 2 small trees cut, or 2 native shrubs per 2 trees cut. Just as an example, it doesn't have to be that. That's obviously up to y'all. But that is essentially what I was trying to move more towards, is making it more economically sustainable, but also balancing that conservation side, because that's my background, economics and environment. So it's again, it's all up to y'all, obviously. And then requirements is also taken directly from our current policy, as well as combining it with a few other ones. Conditions of providing maintenance plans, replacing any trees which don't survive. And then this is something I felt was interesting in the other plans, was filing for a waiver under certain conditions. For instance, trees were damaged, the property is heavily wooded, and new growth would be difficult or unnecessary, and then there is no available space to replant the trees or shrubs. It was in both of the examples which I used to draft this. And if you're looking at, obviously, not to bring Southampton Road back up into it, but if you're looking at a property like that where it's heavily forested, there's really no regrowth options available there because it is so shaded. So planting trees wouldn't serve a purpose, planting shrubs, and then there's just no space there. And where you're going to require that amount of space per tree would be the question there. But I can definitely send this out to y'all. It was literally just something I threw together yesterday over the course of several hours of trying to understand legal language. But it's just a little bit more specific and tailored.
If I could comment, yeah, thank you, Anna, for lots of work. I think one of the things that this really does is it helps to address what Rob Levesque had brought up, was that this makes it quite a bit more specific and provides much more sort of concrete guidelines. And particularly, I like the idea of a application for an exemption that would, again, give people the option of saying, well, maybe this doesn't apply to my area, and makes it less sort of squishy on the part of the Conservation Commission of saying, yes, this will enforce it here, but we won't enforce it there. So I think this is good. I'd like to have some time to read this over carefully and review it, but I think this is at least a great start. And I'll add, poor Rob has hung on for the duration so far, so we perhaps ought to give him some time to comment at some point too.
I think when we were discussing this last year, we didn't really discuss the idea of cutting so much forest. I thought this policy was for more limited areas where, somebody cuts down trees in the resource area in their backyard. And we need an enforcement order to remedy it. Obviously, if you cut down 3 acres in a forest, you can't replant the whole forest.
Exactly. So to me, it would be, in my interpretation of the current policy, it would be more applicable to that no disturb area. That's if you want to remove trees in this no disturb area, or if you accidentally do so, you have to provide mitigation.
Yeah, I agree with David that I think that the main thrust of our initial policy was a replacement for trees that have been cut without authorization.
I agree with that, and that was, I guess, our perspective. Maybe not, thinking of other perspectives. So this wasn't like to be, I guess, not that it couldn't be partially used, but I don't think the intent was to somebody that's going to be cutting down 3 acres to build a small development, this would not be applied to them because there's no resource areas, but they may have an interest in some of this information. So I think Rob brings up some good points, and I for one, and I think we're all going to consider them.
I just think we need some time to read through this a little bit more.
Oh, absolutely.
David's correct. What we did was, if someone did this in their yard, then that was our policy. We didn't want to get into reforesting a forest. That wasn't part of what we talked about, I don't believe.
No, it wasn't. We just wanted to offer some guidance.
That's right. We took in interpretations of other towns, what they had to say. And again, we didn't say case by case basis either. That's a different case when we're reforesting a forest, not a backyard where 10 trees were cut and we asked them to put 3 back in there.
I think the current plan is good, but it just wasn't specific enough as to what it was going to be tailored towards and what types of permitting and project proposals.
If I can just ask the commission, your goals was to apply this to enforcement only? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well,
I think it was a little broader than that, but the main idea was, for enforcement, but also for somewhat limited projects where maybe they were saying that they needed to remove, let's say, 4 trees from within the 100-foot, and so we were giving them guidance on what we would look for replacement. But to Bob's point, we hadn't considered a large-scale project that was already wooded.
Clearly, it needs some defining language because it's ambiguous right now.
Right. All right. So
a question for Anna. Do you, in your document, do you have a reference that we probably in some cases, in most cases, want to have not all the same species planted?
Yep.
But variability of the species. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
all right, so why don't you send that out to us and we'll take a look at it for the next meeting.
Of course.
Thanks for the quick response on that.
One last thing before you guys adjourn the meeting. It's something I didn't get to add to the agenda because I just decided on today. I'm doing a website revamp of the Conservation Department Commission because it's a little outdated. I was wondering if y'all would be comfortable submitting photos of yourself so we can kind of have like Chairman Joe and a photo below and like when your term expires. So it's like people can put a name to the face. You know what I mean?
Dave can't expire.
When the term expires, that's gotta be there. But
I'm okay with that. I'm all right with that.
I didn't know what people's opinions were on putting your photos up on the website.
As long as there's no bullseyes around them.
It would be a photo submitted and approved by you, I promise.
Can we get Bob's clock in the background on there somewhere?
Makes it look more professional.
All right. Well, thank you. I think we have something to think about over this, and I think this might be a good improvement to the current policy and to tighten it up a bit and make it more friendly to the developers in town, and with the intent, so they know what our intent actually is. Okay. So, entertain a motion to adjourn.
I would like, I'm wondering if we should see if Rob has any additional comments that he'd like to make, just because he's hung around for so long.
Okay, well,
Or maybe you don't, Rob, but.
No, go
No,
right ahead.
honestly, I think you guys have things well figured out. I think your new conservation officer and your old one, or your former one, I should say.
Thank you, not old.
Are doing a great job. And I think I feel very comfortable that the subtleties that are being cleaned up will help the commission have something that will not only protect the environment, but that will be easier to apply and make it less subjective. I think regulations in general, when they're less subjective, help you and help the applicants. And we know what we're dealing with. I think it's great. That's awesome. Very much.
All right, thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
I'll give you that motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
All right, do you have a second?
I'll second
it.
All in favor? Carl,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Lauren,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
vote yes as well. All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.